these things are coming up quite frequently now, these World War III updates. I just want to say a few things before we get into this. I was watching, I don't know what the name of the channel was. It was a prepper, and the video was something, World War III is not going to happen, so everybody calm down, or something was the title. It was something along that lines. And the guy made a lot of really good points in there, and one thing I wanted to make sure that, and I'll do a separate video on that, but that, I'm not just doing fear porn. There was like a lot of things I agreed with what that guy was saying, but I think there's a lot, when I get people like this on my channel, and again, in no disrespectful way whatsoever, this guy is, hardcore prepper, it seems. If I find his channel again, I'll definitely recommend it. If he's showing you how to homestead and stuff like that, real prepping stuff. I'm not really what you would call a hardcore prepper channel, although I dabble in it, right? But he made a lot of good points about fear porn and stuff like that. World War III is imminent and stuff like that. I try not to use imminent because imminent is such a it is clickbait. There's no doubt, and a lot of my titles are clickbait. Though it is what it is, right? But there was a couple of things, and I hear this from some of my subscribers too. People, World War III is going to happen. Cooler heads are going to prevail. So don't worry about it. They'll never let it get that bad. And it's the same problem that I think a lot of preppers have. Now, preppers tend to be more cautious-minded than anybody on the planet, really. I mean, they're always thinking about what if, right? But the problem is that, we never thought that could happen here. Again, probably the most quoted thing by civilians in history. We never thought that could happen here. This is a nice place. How many times have you heard that? And the reason why it catches people off guard is, I think the number one reason is that because they're thinking rationally insane, and that's fine if you think, and most people would agree with you, no one's going to use nukes because, it'd be lunacy to use it. Hence lies the problem. The people we're talking about are insane. They're literally insane. They might sound semi-rational or whatever, but when you really understand what they're advocating for, they are insane. When Hillary Clinton advocates for a no-fly zone in Syria, and you even had General Dunsford, I can't remember his first name there, but sitting there, and you can even hear it in his voice, kind of like, to have a no-fly zone, that means we have to go to war with Syria and Russia. Are you mad? Are you nuts? That type of thing. That's kind of what, and that's good. That's good to hear that from a general. What you don't want to hear from a general is, for those who are going to threaten us, we're going to beat you harder than any, you don't want a war hawk. And I get it comes with the territory that, these guys are going to like the idea of going to war. There's blood and guts Patton, and then there's blood and guts Patton wannabes, right? So you have to understand that too. There are guys that really do want to, they're always fighting the last war, as they say. So they're always looking for that opportunity to make a big name for themselves. These guys are history buffs. There's no doubt about that. I don't think you could be a general without being a history buff. That type of thing. So some of them, again, they want that glory to be the King Leonidas of their time, so to speak, right? And I was the general who did this and did that, and then whatever. So when you do get a general that really truly understands that, no, war isn't about ego. It's about death and destruction. The reasons are really, minute why they're for death and destruction. It doesn't matter. It's the end result is death and destruction. And the thing about that is, because this is being talked about in the nuclear age, one thing that you have to understand, the reason why I do what I usually don't use things like imminent, I will put an alert once in a while, like, for example, it has to be something big. Like the Russians, or the Syrian army and Russian intelligence getting hit by the U.S. airstrike. That's big news. That's big news, because that shows direct conflict with Russia. That is, like, the war already went hot with NATO, with Russia, with the Russians. Again, these are little minor incidents at first, but with the Russian Su-24 getting shot down, that is definitely an alert. That's something you want to know about. Barely talk. I don't even think it's ever been mentioned on the mainstream media up here, but a Russian Su-24 getting shot down. That is big news. That is huge news. As a Syrian Su-24 getting shot down, which I think the Syrians only might have a handful of them. I think they mostly have MiG-23s and MiG-21s, and a handful of new MiG-29s. But if it was Syrian, it's not as big of a deal. But Russia, it's a NATO country shooting down a Russian Federation airplane. It's huge news. It's huge news. Now, again, the cooler heads prevailing wasn't on the Turkish side. It's on the Russian side. That said, the Russians are getting force meets force, push coming to shove. And with what I got in this report, I think, these are those little incremental steps that I've been telling people to watch, yes, for years. glad we've had years. But at some point, it's just going to happen. I don't know when, and that's probably one of the most, well, not the most common question I get about World War III, but a very high, especially with subscribers that are new. When do you think it's going to happen? Is it going to happen by next Wednesday at 8 o'clock? Because I got to get this done before that. That type of thing. I don't know when. I don't know the date and the time, and I don't pretend to know. All I want to achieve with this channel is to give you geopolitical updates of what's going on in the world, and that you make up your own mind. And if you think it's never going to happen, that's up to you. But for those that think it's never going to happen, again, history teaches us no, it will happen. It's just not it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And that's not fear porn, that's just reality. We do have lunatics. The lunatics that got us into World War I is the same cut of cloth of the lunatics that got us into World War II, the same cut of cloth that is getting us directly into World War III. And how we haven't been launched into it yet is because, yes, you're correct, cooler heads did prevail. But the problem is it's not on this side of the pond. It's not on this side of not this empire. That empire, cooler heads prevail. The Chinese have been, I don't know how they've been able to stay under the radar so long. And you got to admire that's a brilliant tactician to stay out of it as much as possible, even with the U.S. Navy patrolling right off your coast. That's pretty impressive. The Russians, direct aggression against Russia. I'm not saying the Russian government is a saint or Putin is a saint. No, I mean, let the Russian people deal with the Russian government. That's their problem. You know what I mean? Right now, the Russian people tend to be very pro-Putin. So why overthrow? Okay, fine. Now, that said, if Putin goes, I mean, he's not a young man either. If Putin goes, who might replace Putin could be 10 times more terrifying. I mean, you get one of these old Cold War horses. Some of them were very neoconish, even on that side, and the neocons do originate from Russia. Keep that in mind. They do originate from there. So they're there. So Putin is Russian Federation. He's not Soviet Union. He is Russian Federation. The Russians are building an empire, but they're building a very secluded empire. Members only kind of thing. You want to do a deal with us, you do deal with us. That type of thing. The Chinese are doing the same. So that's that side of the empire. Right now you have to look at Russia and China as the same empire. And if you understand it as empires fighting, then you understand that war is inevitable. That type of thing. And right now, on this side of the empire, the Anglo-American empire, transatlantic system, and the petrodollar is failing. And when all else fails, we go to war. So this is something that I think a lot of preppers don't, they never believe it's going to happen. I'm not, okay, it's going to happen in 5 minutes. I don't sensationalize like that because I really don't know what's going to happen. Again, I've been talking about this for years. But you can clearly see those little black, dots of connection. This dot connects you to that dot connects you to this, and this. And you can start to really paint the picture, the direction we're moving. The stuff I'm talking about now, it wasn't even a thought that I'd be talking about in 2010. Now you're saying, yeah, well, that's 2010, and see, it hasn't happened, so it's not going to happen. It doesn't work like that. If you look at any war, war doesn't happen until it happens. And that's how you have to look at it. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. Maybe I'll do a separate video on this because, I've got to get into the news here. But the thing is that right now with what, in this report, just pertaining to this report, we are seeing stuff that we haven't seen since the beginning of World War II, World War I, that type of thing. Stuff that usually doesn't happen and it usually happens typically 6 to 8 months before a major war breaks out or a conflict. And you see people moving all over the place. What did I say a couple of months ago? The closer we get to the election, watch for people doing all kinds of stuff. Watch for prominent politicians getting knocked off. Now, here in Canada, this is the third air crash with a politician in it this year. Maybe it's something to do with something. There was bad weather involved. These people are wealthy. They do fly a lot. A lot of them have private planes. So, is it out of normal? But, over there in Alberta, or in BC, where the crash was a prominent conservative politician. This guy was very pro-pipeline and stuff like that. That type of thing. So, I don't know. Maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing. Just, have a look at that. But I also said, the closer we get to the election, watch for world elites doing bizarre things. And the bizarro world, we'd have to be able to rewind ourselves back to 2008 to see how crazy it is now. Because we've become so accustomed to how crazy it is now. And the thing I said to watch out for is politicians ending up dead. Not specifically this one, I just thought I'd mention this one. But bankers, politicians, the closer we get to the election, you're going to see people being pretty much killed off. And we're seeing that. And I also said, watch for the world elites heading to their bunkers, which we are seeing now. But it gets even better than that, or worse than that. So, stop your barking, dog. But anyway, we'll get into it, and then when I get to the main meat and potatoes of this thing, you'll see what I mean, how the pattern is painting itself out. Lacey, stop barking! You don't hear the cats barking. Dogs, what kind of dog barks? Anyway, the USS Nitz was basically fired 3 cruise missiles, Tomahawk cruise missiles, at 3 radar stations, taking out Houthi radar stations there. The Houthis have already, there's 2 incidents now of the Houthis firing, well, supposedly, allegedly firing missiles at U.S. warships. Okay, now, that in response, after these radar stations were hit, they never said for sure it was missiles being fired, but the U.S. came in very close to the shore with their ships, close enough to be within range to be fired upon, I guess. And, you know, why would they get in that close if they knew it was a dangerous area? I guess, A, they weren't suspecting people to be able to fire at them, and what was really fired at them, that's not known. They say it was missiles, but what kind of missiles? If we're talking RPG-7s, does that justify 3 Tomahawk cruise missiles worth millions of dollars, or just an excuse to be able to take out those radar stations? So, other way, what happens is the radar stations are taken out. If they could use that for an excuse, I'm sure they took it. Now, Iran, in response, has now moved its warships very close to the Gulf of Aden, and I'm going to put that. And they basically, I think they sent 2 or 3 ships. So that's in response. So now we have Iranian warships very close to U.S. warships. Again, a tense situation. The United States needs to get into a war with Iran for Israel, for the Odin Plan, the Greater Israel Project. And if you understand the Greater Israel Project, you understand what's going on in the Middle East. And I'll bring it up again because some people didn't understand what the Greater Israel Project is. I did a video on it. But some people, Israel wants to expand and control the Middle East. No. What they want to do is balkanize the Middle East. And you heard John Kerry talk about it several times. How, well, we're going to take Syria and we're going to break it up into all these little spots so everybody has a place to be. And it doesn't really work like that. The idea was they want to break down all the nation states that could challenge Israel and basically turn them into these tiny little tribal regions so that every little tribal region is never big enough or powerful enough to take on Israel. It sounds like a logical thing. However, the means of doing it is death and destruction through war, arming groups like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all that stuff. That's what that's where it all tracks back to. Yes, Goop. Here, that's your liking. Hey, let me put my feet up. Get off me. Get off me. Like, pet me now. There we go. What do I say, pet me? I say pet me. No more barking at you. So, anyway, go. Scram. So that's a big part of it. And everything we're seeing now is, even Henry Kissinger say, this is like Act 2 or Act 3 of a plan. These people don't hide it. Like Zbigniew Brzezinski, George Soros, Henry Kissinger, these people think they're beyond touchable, so they can say whatever they want. And the good news about that is that these are the people, you listen to them, you'll know what's going on in the world. You might not like these people. These people disgust me like you wouldn't believe. These are evil, beyond evil. These are just completely scum of the earth people. But they know the scoop. So imagine, they're bold enough to tell you this openly. Imagine what they're not telling us. You know what I mean? That type of thing. So, yeah, this is what it's all about in one aspect of it is the Greater Israel Project. But in order to preserve Israel, you have to protect the petrodollar. And by protecting the petrodollar, it's a death and debt-based economy. The United States doesn't manufacture. You've got 94, 96 million people out of work in the United States. Like a third of their population just about. It's unbelievable how many people are out of work right now. And they don't make anything anymore. And with things like NAFTA and stuff like that, it's pretty much destroyed the country. This is what Donald Trump is pretty much campaigning on. And the thing about that is that with a death and debt-based economy, it's you take the petrodollar or you get democracy JDAMs. Syria didn't want U.S. pipelines going through Syria. Instead, they were going to put Russian pipelines in there. hence Jordan and Oman and all that, and Yemen. All these people had, you know, the Saudis. They wanted the deal. So that's part of the destabilization. But it also works with the Greater Israel Project. So that's a part of it. Now, when John Kerry says if Syria falls back into the hands of Assad, the petrodollar will collapse. Well, they're correct, unless they can get the war going with Iran. Now, Israel's been frothing at the mouth to go do a strike on Iran, this nuclear facility. Remember, this nuclear facility was paid for by the United States. They paid for it. You know, so again, we arm the people we fight in the future. You know, that type of thing. So, U.S. foreign policy, if it was complete incompetence that things worked into the mess, if it was incompetence, at some point things would work in your favor. You know, but it never works in our favor. It always makes it worse. So things are right on schedule. They're not. This is what a lot of people don't understand. You know, they didn't lose control in the Middle East in this the way you think. Because they keep doing this. They're going to keep doing this until they get their way. This is what leads us to war. Is the other side is the other empire is saying no, you can't have Syria, and that's Russia, and that's also China. China's also saying you can't have Iran or Syria, you know, because China is invested in Iran. Iran, the reason why they want to take out Iran is because Iran is the main country that is the main threat to Israel. It's actually got its own weapons program. It can do stuff. Now the Saudis, they just buy weapons. They don't really make anything. But the Iranians, at some point, you give them 10, 20 years down the road, they're going to be making stuff every bit as good as the Russian Federation, every bit as good as the U.S. Give them 10, 20 years. A lot of people, no, they're always going to be ragtag. No. They know it's in their best interest to up the ante. Now, the equipment they're building now is, you know, I'd say 1970s quality for most stuff. But 1970s quality tanks and airplanes and rockets and stuff like that are still a threat, particularly in a confined region like the Middle East. And you have to keep that in mind, that even if it's a 1970s style kerosene type of rocket, you know, okay, we don't have the proper rocket fuel. Russian rockets were always multiple fueled. You could, you know, okay, you lose a lot of range using kerosene, but it was enough range to get the job done from Cuba, right? So from the 1960s, 1970s. So the Iranians, they're going to have a lot of lower tech stuff. Problem is, they're going to have a lot of it. Right now, I think they have enough rockets that they can take out Israel. Conventional weapons. Like, they don't even need nukes, and that's what I've always said. The Iranians don't really need nukes. Will they get nukes? Well, they'll probably just buy them from the North Koreans, because they do trade with North Korea. That's one of the I think North Korea does trade with like maybe 2-3 countries. That's about it. And it's all weapons stuff. It's all weapons stuff and technology. And I believe I have no proof of this, but I'm pretty sure at one point I did hear that the Iranians and the North Koreans, you know, their scientists are working together for stuff. So whatever technology shows up in North Korea is eventually going to show up in Iran. And of course, the Iranians are going to be getting access to Chinese technology if they're doing business with the North Koreans. And the Chinese technology is not bad. It's not bad. Again, every time I see these videos of why, like, the U.S. doesn't need to fear China's, I think it's the Dongfang 31 aircraft carrier killer missile systems and stuff like that. Oh, because, you know, everything's going to work like clockwork. But even the F-22 doesn't work as good as advertised. It's a good airplane, don't get me wrong. It's a good airplane. F-15 is still a good airplane. I think it's a great airplane. But they never work as good as advertised. You can't maintain them fast enough. World War II, I mean, Spitfire pilots, you know, patch it now, fix it later. They were able to get these things back up in the air in an hour or two. You know, if it was really shot up, maybe the next morning. A fighter jet, just use an F-18 for an example, for every 1 hour flown, 12 hours of routine maintenance. That's with no damage. Add damage in there, you know, the thing's out for 3 weeks. You know what I mean? It takes a lot of energy to fight a war. Bob there, my shooting partner, always says there, he's like in his 70s, he goes, when you see like a deployment overseas of like, 5,000 troops, he goes, there's like 300 guys on the front line and the rest are there to support them. You know, it's the food, it's the build the little city, get the water running, all that type of stuff, get the intelligence. That's about realizing it. So the support to run a war is 10 times bigger than the army. Where, if you go back to Roman times, the guys that were supporting the army were the soldiers. They carried their weapons by hand, and the weaponry. There was a few things that sure may have been, used horses to transport, but it all was all mobile together. Those days and times is long gone. But nowadays, I mean, to drive around in Abrams for an hour with 1,500 horsepower jet engine, I mean, you pretty much have to have a fuel tanker driving right behind you. Like literally, they drive with one leg, 1 foot in a bucket. You know what I mean? Like it's you got if the thing, I can't remember what the range is on an Abrams. It's not very far, not as far as you would think. They might get like 60 to 80 miles, 100 miles tops. And if they take the governor off the Abrams, which will do about 70 miles an hour on governor, which is very impressive, the amount of the fuel they suck up. That's one tank. Add in 6,000 of those. Amazing amount of maintenance that goes into just keeping those things running. And, like, for example, I remember talking to a Leopard tank crew member. He says, a tank day is a busy day, but it's a work day. And he goes, he says, probably easy, by the time you've worked it out for every 1 hour of use on this thing, he says, you probably do put in about 11 hours of maintenance. That's going over every nut and bolt and stuff like that. So tanks are pretty high maintenance. Even the Russian ones, which are designed to go weeks without proper routine maintenance, that type of thing. And the Russian tanks, again, they run on multiple. Like I think the T-90 runs on like 8 different types of fuel, almost down to crude oil. Like it's pretty impressive, that type of thing. So the maintenance aspect of a war is astronomical, and that plays into how good is the equipment that's really in there, how long will it really last, how long will it really hold up, and as the stuff starts failing, that's when you have to resort to other options such as missiles, and then from missiles to nukes. This is big too. Again, we know, even though the mainstream, it'll be another probably few months before the mainstream media says, yes, well, we've been arming ISIS all along, kind of like how Hillary Clinton talked about it, again, talking about all this criminality. Oh, well, the Mujahideen, we armed in the first place, and we armed the people we're fighting now. She openly admitted that a couple of years ago, and it's like, and it's not like, oh, geez, we made a mistake and we shouldn't do it again. And so, no, let's double down, let's do it again. And this kind of shows that the U.S. and Saudi Arabia are giving safe passage to 9,000 ISIS fighters in Mosul to go into Syria. Like I said, the whole point of ISIS, corral them like cattle into Syria to fight Assad. So, you can leave Mosul, there in Iraq. And that's a big distance from Mosul to where they want to send them to like Aleppo and the other places. So anyway, that said, the Syrians are giving jihadis free passage to get out of Aleppo and I guess all the other cities right now. And the Syrian Arab Army has taken one side of Aleppo. I believe Saud is right and the United Nations is right that they're going to take Syria probably by the new year, around Christmas time, New Year, give or take. I mean, things can happen in that. So clearly, the United States and Saudi Arabia are giving safe passage to ISIS out of Mosul on the agreement that they go into Syria. So, again, I'd be like, you fight these bastards where they are, and you don't let them out. You kill each and every last one of them. Or you give them safe passage, you take the city, and then you fight them on the outskirts. Whichever. It doesn't matter. But the Syrian Arab Army is, again, mobilizing. They're getting new equipment from the Russians daily. The amount of training they've been getting is really showing to be effective against the, considering that without, and again, I always wondered why the Russians let it get so bad in the first place, why they waited so long to get into Syria. That part I never really figured out. My hunch is that, like some other analysts were saying that I've heard it from 3 guys like Paul Craig Roberts, Joe Skousen, and Steve Pachenik. They've all said, well, Russia wanted to come into the aid of Syria to look like the good guys on the world stage, to show how bad U.S. foreign policy is, to show that they're arming the terrorists. And they are. I mean, the United States government is arming the terrorists. I've said it for a long time now. I think at this point, if you haven't drawn that conclusion, it's cognitive dissonance. I'm not telling you how to think, but just look at all the... Again, ISIS is the luckiest terrorist organization on the planet. So when you have all these other analysts saying, the reason why Russia's stepping in, just before the Syrian Arab Army was about to fall to ISIS, they're pretty much on the ropes. I mean, 3 weeks, if the Russians waited 3 weeks, there would be no Syria. And in comes the Russians and bang, with air power in just a few short weeks, they knock the crap all out. Now, this is going to be a long war. This one's going to go on for 20 years at the way it's going, that type of thing. But the thing is at some point, as Syria stabilizes, which won't take that long, I mean, the little skirmishes in between of jihadi groups and people, suicide bombers, that's going to go on for 20 years. But the main hardcore jihadi army, that's going to be, you have jihadists, again, they're only as loyal as you pay them, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the intelligence that the Russians get is from just saying, well, if they're paying you guys this, we'll double it. Tell us where the other guys are. Again, mercenaries are only as loyal as you pay them, right? So they'll turn on each other. They'll turn on their mother, you know what I mean? So it's a dirty game. I'm sure the Russians are doing that. Can I prove it? No, but it's what I would do. Because look at the accuracy that the Russians have been getting. Now, are civilians getting killed with Russian air power? I can't prove it, but again, I would have no doubt that, again, they take out like 8 city blocks with the TOS-1 there. You're going to kill people in there. Whoever's in there, they're going to get thermobaric rockets raining down on them and thermobaric fob free fall bombs on them. Barrel bombs are the least of their problems. I mean, there's some really heavy firepower being dropped there. Civilians are getting killed. Are they purposely striking hospitals and stuff like that? I don't know. It's a war. It's a war. That said, there's no proof that the Russians have. Like, there's no clear, definitive proof. There's lots of accusations from John Kerry and stuff like that, and they're saying, oh, well, we got to get Russia for war crimes, that type of thing. Again, they won't even tell you what hospital they hit. If they hit a hospital, they'd be not only telling you what hospital, they'd be showing it. Kind of like when the U.S. hits the hospitals with the A-10s there a little while back. Here's the hospital, here's where they hit. And we could prove that aircraft was in the air at that time. That type of thing. So it's very, and I think they hit these hospitals not because it's an accident. I think there's somebody in there that they want to kill. And that's the thing, you'll never get a manifesto of who was killed in the strike. And that's probably like spy vs. spy, because right now quite a few Russians have been killed, in there, and they're all high intelligence guys too. So that's, again, the amount of, and I've said it before, the amount of intelligence officers dead throughout the Middle East must be astronomical now. And we're never going to hear about it unless they have no choice but to hear about it, right? So this is why I think Israel is kind of really, you don't hear a peep out of Israel right now, that type of thing. But anyway, India is getting the S-400 missile system. Now, India is an interesting case. Which way are they going to go? They do seem to be going towards, I mean, they're part of the BRIC nations, Brazil, India, Russia, and China, and South Africa, I think. Kind of forgetting here. Anyway, the BRICS nations. So India is definitely seems to be more pro-Russia and China than it does, and it makes sense for them to be so because of where they are strategically. And we know that India's always done weapons deals with Russia. They had a Typhoon sub for a little while on loan without missiles in it. And they buy, they've got that deal. India's got that deal for the T-14 Armada to get I think 2,300 of those in the next couple of years. So the weapons deal there, and then of course the ratcheting up between Pakistan, and remember Pakistan is another proxy state for the United States, even though it's in turmoil. They strike their own ally. It is kind of a proxy state. So if they lose Pakistan, if Russia could find a way to woo Pakistan, and Iran could find a way to work with Pakistan, and it'd be, broker a peace deal between India and Pakistan, which I don't know if it could be done, but if they can do that, they will basically have a clear passage to put the pipelines right through. They'll have to go around, Azerbaijan, to, Armenia, then Azerbaijan. I don't know if they can get to bypass Turkey to get the pipelines around and go right into Syria, and then from Syria go right into Iran, from Iran go right into Pakistan right into China, or to India, and next thing you know, you got oil flowing right from Russia right down, and all these other nations, they're going to prosper like crazy, and it will cut out the Rothschild banking system. So, yeah. So they're supposed to be getting S-400 missile systems. Right now, the S-300 and S-400 missile systems are all over the place. The Philippines is pretty much on its way to kicking the United States out. There is going to be a coup in a colored revolution coup in. You already see the beginnings of it. This Duterte can't say his name there. But anyway, the president there. I mean, this guy's been quite a handful there, cursing Obama left, right, as Obama would say. He's a colorful character. I guess that's an understatement. It's like, well, this guy's like, but he pulled the Philippines guy. This guy won based upon taking a playbook out of Donald Trump. Just go forward, brackish, and honest. And he is being honest. That's the thing. He is being honest. Is he diplomatic? Hell no, not even close. But he's basically, they're turning the Philippines, if the United States loses the Philippines, they're going to lose more than just a military ally. They're going to lose a part of the drug trade. Now, the reason why I think they're going to want to get rid of him is more because of that. Here's the deal. If the Duterte is killing something like 2,500 to 3,000 cartels already, I mean, they're not even going to jail. They're just killing them. You know, like, it's a dictatorship. You know, I wouldn't want to live in the Philippines right now. I think it'd be kind of dangerous. If they're killing these guys, the CIA is all over the drug trade everywhere around the world. They're the ones that facilitate 90% of it. Okay? And one thing you have to understand about the war on drugs, 90%, 88 or 90% of the money made in the war on drugs is legal. Yes, it's judges, lawyers, prosecutors, policing equipment, surveillance, etc., etc. That's where the real money is. It's an industry, right? So you have to understand that. But also, it's a way to fund black projects. So, yeah. So I don't know when they're going to do it, but we'll watch for it. I'm pretty sure we're going to see something, a revolution or something happen in the Philippines. Now, going over there to the UK, well, the RAF has been given orders. Once again, we've had this couple of, I guess, early last year, late last year, whatever, to shoot down perceived Russian hostile jets. Before it was, if you get a Russian jet or a Syrian jet that's hostile to you, shoot it down. Hostile meaning it's going to fire on you. Now if it's perceived to be hostile, meaning he's flying in your area and he's flying towards you and he's not getting out of the way. Don't wait for him to lock onto you and fire. You know, use your judgment. If you want to shoot him down, shoot him down. So, again, for those who don't believe something can happen, I do believe there's going to be a lot of fighter jets and warships blown up before the mainstream media can accept it as a war. I think what is going on right now, and this is just my hunch, okay, is that the U.S. is I wouldn't say probing Russia, but they're like, okay, we're not going to call it a war until we have to call it a war. We are clearly at war with Russia. We are at war. We're not in a Cold War anymore. We are at war. It is a direct conflict. There's already been blood spilled. The first one was the Su-24 getting shot down. That's the first official confirmation. If we read about this 500 years later in a history book, we'll say, well, when Turkey shot down, that NATO country shot down a Russian Federation airplane, that was the opening shots of World War III. That was the very first opening shots. The second incident was the U.S. doing an hour-long air raid, not mistakenly, even while the Syrians were trying to call it off, they didn't do it. An hour-long air raid with the Russians picking up, and some of the equipment in Russia would pick this up too. Looks like, again, I can't prove it, but the word on the grapevine is that there was, basically intelligence picked up radio signals coordination between the rebels, so-called moderate rebels, which are clearly Al-Qaeda. They're called Al-Sham now, which is supposed to be the new moderate group, but they just keep changing the name, right? And the coalition jets. So the Russians really knew for sure, and this is why, like a couple of days later, or almost a week later, the Russians counter-hit the intelligence command post, killing all kinds of intelligence officers, Israeli Mossad, CIA, they probably even hit quite a few prominent ISIS leaders as well. Again, because these all guys would be all CIA as well, and other intelligence, that type of thing, Iraqi and whatever. So the Russians did tit for tat. So that was the immediate Russian response. The mainstream media does not cover that at all. They do cover the fact that, the accidental air bombing of the accidental hour-long air bombing of the the Assad's troops. Again, ISIS just got lucky again that they just happened to be in the area where the United States made a mistake. And they were able to move in right in after on this position. Coincidence? Well, that's almost as being as lucky as at least 15 recorded times of weapons being dropped accidentally to ISIS. Again, think of a Globemaster pilot. This guy's probably got about 2,000 hours of flying time minimum to get that bird off the ground. Many of these airplanes, the training sessions are 400 hours long or more just to be able to take the thing out by yourself, with your crew. These guys, all they do, these guys can navigate the Arctics without regular instrument. These guys know how to. They don't make mistakes where they drop. They're dropped where they're told to drop. The thing is the intelligence is bad. 15 times in a row that they're going to accidentally. And what about the helicopters that are flying over the areas? You're telling me those guys don't know who they're dropping the weapons to? Really? 15 times minimum, so it must be way more than that. You had an Iranian and Iraqi, this is why Iraq is kind of a bit of a wild card. They shot down a U.S. helicopter, I guess it'd be about a year and a bit ago now, they knew was supplying weapons to ISIS. We have safe passage for 9,000 ISIS jihadis. Where's those A-10s again, the A-10s on the highway of death in Iraq. 10,000 cars and women and children and tanks and whatever was there, they strafed it. They didn't miss a thing. Come in with the A-10s, up, rockets, up, go, come around, do it again, send in 5 of them, whatever. A-10s didn't miss a thing in Desert Storm. They freaking annihilated that country. I still say it's one of the best attack planes ever devised. It's not a dogfighter, but it is maneuverable, but its low-level capabilities is unbelievable. And it's a flying bomb truck with a hell of a punch of a cannon in the front. They didn't miss anything, but they can't find these guys in their brand new Toyotas. Oh yeah, well, let's talk about those new Toyotas. They just happen to find all this stuff with tanks, 70 Abrams tanks, 150 artillery guns, tens of thousands of light arms. They even found U.S.-made TOW missiles, a German batch of them, in a facility in Syria when Syria never had U.S.-made weapons. It's funny how ISIS got lucky like that to find all these state-of-the-art anti-tank weapons. Man, that's just lucky. Just lucky. All these food convoys that just keep coming to them, even when the United Nations know that ISIS is in the area, but yet they keep sending the food trucks there. And ISIS keeps able to get these. Wow, these guys are just so lucky. It almost looks like a pattern. Almost. Yeah. That said, on the DEFCON system, we're at DEFCON 3. So that's, DEFCON is, DEFCON, I always call it DEFCON, but DEFCON is up to 5. 5 is check for a pulse. 4 is, hey, did you hear that? 3 is, yeah, I heard that. Did you see that? 2 is, it's coming right at us. Number 1 is, brace, oh shit, I think they just launched. And if it goes down to 0, well, we're dead. That type of thing. So we're at DEFCON 3. That DEFCON system, DEFCON 3 is what we're at. So you can go, there's a website that shows you where we're at. It goes around every now and then. Remember, we were at DEFCON 3 the last time. The incident was, I haven't been checking that, so I should be checking it more often. But the incident was up in the Arctic, reportedly, between RCAF, Canadian pilots, and some Russians. Apparently, it sounded like there was a dogfight going on there. I don't know if there was a dogfight. I heard, and it was in French. The pilots were, I guess, French Canadians, so they were speaking French, and my French is, it depends on who's speaking it. I can pick up a little bit of it, but it sounded like they were more tracking something. I didn't hear any missiles away or anything like that. But these pilots did sound very, 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 very elevated voice. It didn't sound like they were just escorting a Tu-95 out of the region. It did sound like there was either something tracking them or whatever. And apparently, the rumor is that the NATO airplanes got shot down, which, again, we never heard about it on the thing. But if Canadian pilots got shot down because there's so few of them, there'd be no way to hide that in Canada. We're a population of 36 million people, so on the world stage, we're kind of a small country in manpower-wise. But, landmass-wise, we're the second largest landmass country in the world. But that said, you take out one of our airplanes, that's going to be all over the grapevine. You won't hear it on the news. The CBC won't cover it because they're not allowed, but wouldn't be allowed. But you would hear it, relatives over here will be telling relatives over there. Oh, yeah, this guy from here, this lady, her husband got shot down over the Arctic, but they didn't say what happened. And 2 of them went down, they'd probably come up with, it was a training accident. That type of thing. And you got to wonder about some of these training accidents, that type of thing. But that said, that was what was released. I don't think anybody got shot down but I do think I think there was probably a scary situation that happened. That was the last time I think we were at DEFCON 3. Anyway, this sounds a little off from the main course here, but 2,800 Catholic churches taken down in France. They're just destroying these things left, right, and center, building mosques like crazy, but they're they're knocking down all these like really old cathedrals. And like we're talking hundreds of years old. Some of these buildings. These are historic buildings. Are they doing it for? I don't know. If you're from France, let me know what's going on there with all that. That said, today, I'm making this video, the U.S. and Russia are in Switzerland talking about Syria again. Now, I think it's kind of like a game on, game off kind of thing where it's like, okay, well, we still have to keep talking to the Russians. Because I think what the Russians have done is, they're really showing very clearly that they're serious about defending against war. Now, is it theater? If it's theater, we got nothing to worry about, no problem, right? But I don't think it's theater. I really don't, because even if Putin was in on it, he could have started a war like that. He could have started it back when the jet got shot down. He could have started it even before that. They could have started it with Ukraine. He's had tons and tons of opportunities to start the war. Now, according to Joe Scalzo, said yes, they've all agreed on a war, but they're not going to have it until 2023, 2024, somewhere around that time, give or take, and because the Russians and the Chinese aren't ready yet. Well, it wouldn't matter if they were ready, if they were all in on it. It's like, okay, well, we'll just go to war today. It doesn't really matter. We'll make it look good. We'll leak you some intelligence so you can get a couple of strikes on our guys to rally our guys to fight against you, and we'll kill a couple of your guys. They do it that way. They would just coordinate the war, and whatever behind the channels, that type of thing. So being ready, that doesn't matter. You don't have to wait till their weapons are good enough, because it won't matter. Because the war will be swayed more by intelligence of knowing where the other guy is before he knows where you are than the type of weapon you have. That's kind of always been, the guy sitting waiting in ambush has always got the, action is always faster than reaction, right? That type of thing. So, what I would say is that, I don't know what's going to come out of this, but Putin, once again, they're out there saying, there's a prominent guy of Putin's out there saying, vote for Trump, or we're going to have a war for sure with Hillary Clinton at the helm. How am I doing for time? I guess I got to wrap this up. And the thing is about that is that they basically they're warning people as much as they can. The Putin speech there about a month or so ago of talking to the media of all the stuff that they're lying about and stuff like that. Again, I've listened to Hillary Clinton, and right in the last debate speech. I mean, if you were in the military, you heard what she said about a no-fly zone, and she knows what a no-fly zone means. A no-fly zone, and again, we go back to Dunsford, and it's not just him saying it; it's several prominent people saying this. A no-fly zone means direct war with Russia. So, in other words, the United States is going to initiate war with Russia officially through this no-fly zone. And to call Russia's bluff, well, I think this is what the signaling is going on now. They're testing out the waters with Russia to see how they're going to react to a no-fly zone. And the reaction isn't good. Yesterday, as of October 14th, yes, you've got more nukes going to Kaliningrad. We've got Topol-Ms all over the place. We have that largest Topol-M drill that just went live. They were testing Topol-Ms the other day. These things, they move every 10, 15 minutes. A crew of 3. It's a nuclear missile on wheels. That's what it is. And they've got, I don't know how many. I think 18 divisions or something like that. And I forget how many are in a division. But you're looking at about 180 to 200 of these vehicles and some. And they fire the RS-24 missile, and I guess the new RS-26 or 36, whatever. These things, 11,000 mile range. They're devastatingly 10 warheads each. They will probably have the new Sarmat missile or warheads in there. These things bob and weave as they come in at Mach 12. You can't stop them. You can't shoot these things down with what's conventionally out there. And even if you get 1 or 2, they have decoy warheads. Plus, they've got all kinds of other things. And Putin talking about the missile systems that are surrounding Russia. He explained it so perfectly in that last month's thing, saying that the idea is to shoot down Russian missiles before they can get off the ground, and then as they're shooting down our missiles, they launch theirs, making Russia completely defenseless. Meaning Russia will go back to what it said in 2010. If you put these missile systems in and completely threaten the sovereignty of Russia, we reserve the right to preemptively strike these things, that's what the United States wants, so that they can, Russia attacked us. They're provoking them into an attack, that type of thing. And now Russia's also brought out a new type of surveillance jamming system, radar system that they've got in Syria right now. And I believe this is the system that they've been putting this stuff on their helicopters, their old hype helicopters, and stuff like that. And the system, the thing is they just revamped some of their old equipment. They don't reinvent the wheel, so you can't really tell a lot of times the difference between some of the older systems and the newer systems. But whatever it is they're doing, it seems to be working. And it blinds satellites, it blinds radio communications, jams everything. The Israelis can't get past it. They've jammed blinded several Israeli jets. That's why the Israeli jets are not coming into Syria as much anymore. And they've been chased away by Su-30s on a few occasions as well. We've already covered this. So this thing, it doesn't allow the United States to see what's going on when the Russians are in the air. That said, that is on the back of being defended by, you guessed it, the S-300 missile systems, S-400, S-500 missile systems coming online now. And then, of course, the Buk missile system, the Syrians are getting that, and a few other things, and the Panzer S-1s. So the Syrians, they're going to have some severe firepower there. And again, the Russians are going to go, here you go, figure out how to work it. They've probably been, the guys getting this equipment now have been probably trained on it for the past year, which it takes a long time to be a good operator, but working in coordination with the Russians, they can tell the Syrians when to fire the thing. Okay, you've got an F-16 coming your way or an A-10. And it looks like it's coming right at you. Be ready for it. It'll be the third dot on your screen. It's coming in at this altitude, this speed, whatever. Be ready for them. Don't turn the weapon on until you're in firing range. Once you're in firing range, let them have it. That type of thing, because they're not, like, if you're a SAM site operator and you have an A-10 coming in at you, you get 3 miles out. 3 miles out, you got to open up on him, because inside 3 miles, his main gun can get you. Now, that said, if he's got Mavericks on there, those things, I forget the range on those things, but they're 30 to 60 miles or whatever they are. Again, Syria isn't that big, so there's going to be a lot of airplanes. If they're coming right at the SAM site has to either warn the aircraft to back off, but give up its position, and if that's the case, it has to shoot and scoot as quickly as possible. And it's a real cat and mouse game. And the way the Russians train is that way. Identify something, move. Turn the radar on again, paint him, okay, see what he does. Okay, move again, move again, move again, move again. So that it's always moving around. It's not like 1950s, 1960s missiles where they were all stationary on the ground, like the old silkworms and stuff like that. Now it's a lot different. Next to that, it looks like Israel is going to be the first country to get F-35s outside the U.S., and this comes on the heels of the Russians putting in all the S-300 missile system and everything like that. Now, the last part, most of you probably already heard, but there's more to it now, is, and again, the F-35s, we'll find out, the Israelis are going to, they're taking a chance on that one. I really don't think the F-35, and they're like, the S-300 missile systems can't find the F-22 and the F-35. The F-22 and the F-35 are not fully stealth. The B-2 is a fully stealth aircraft. The F-117 Nighthawk is a stealth aircraft. The SR-71 is a stealth aircraft. The F-22 is more stealthy than watch out, Kazoo, than a conventional aircraft, but it's not fully stealth. So they are detectable. And yes, if they were able to shoot down the F-117 Nighthawk a few years back with an S-200 missile system, the low-frequency radar of it's multi-frequency radar that the S-300, it's all phase array, Doppler, it's everything. And they don't look for what's there, they look for what's not there. And that's how they find the aircraft. So they might not be able to find the aircraft, but they can find the heat signature of the exhaust. That's what they do. They contrast it, and then they say, okay, well, we can see that the exhaust is moving in this direction. Here's the tip of the exhaust. The missile's just got to be close enough. Within probably 100 yards of the target, it'll blow it out of the sky. That's how those Buk missile systems, they fire sideways. It's a shaped charge that comes right at, it's like a shotgun shell, that type of thing. So it'll get it. The last thing, and this is the bigger news, is Russia is basically calling back students. They're basically telling students, politicians, businessmen, everybody, get back to Russia now. No matter what effect it's going to have on your life, get back to Russia now. If you were up for promotion, you won't get your promotion unless you come back home. That's coming from Putin. They're telling the Russian people, get home now. That's huge news. That is a huge dot. It doesn't mean war will break out, but it means the response that up to the election, they want their people home and safe before this election, because they know after the election, when Hillary Clinton wins, that they most likely will go to war. So at least, again, we saw the 40 million people in the drill, and they're also telling these people, find out where your local fallout shelters are. We don't hear any of this over here at all. And we don't have that stuff. That's why they're not saying we're not prepared. But the Russians are preparing their people for something big. Doesn't mean something big will happen, but it tells you the Russians are on edge. The Russians are on edge. So even if it was a world stage and Putin was in bed with Obama and just following Kissinger and Brzezinski and Soros and all that, you still have to factor in that it doesn't mean they aren't going to do something bad, because it's not going to stay a conventional war. It will go to nukes. How many nukes? Who knows? But it's going to be devastating for us, not them. But that said, that is a big warning to tell your people, even if it means you're going to lose your job, like, get home. Get home. That's huge. That's huge. If you are Russian, again, if any of this stuff is, and again, I don't mind being corrected. I want to be truthful. Again, I don't want to just put out fear porn. So if anything, if you're over in Russia and you're starting to witness this stuff, let us know. What is your government really saying over there? Because we're not going to get the honesty. They don't even cover this on the mainstream media. Nothing of what I said today was covered on the mainstream media. Nothing. And it won't be. So let us know what's going on in the world. Even if you're not in Russia, if you're in a neighboring country, let us know. Next to that, if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to the channel. Links down below. Thank you so much to everybody who has. Rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. Be true to yourself. Be true to others. Always do the right thing. And have yourselves a great day. Hey, hi, and welcome. All right. I guess these things are coming up quite frequently now, these World War III updates. I just want to say a few things before we get into this. I was watching, I don't know what the name of the channel was. It was a prepper, and the video was something, World War III is not going to happen, so everybody calm down, or something was the title. It was something along that lines. And the guy made a lot of really good points in there. And one thing I wanted to make sure that, and I'll do a separate video on that, but that, I'm not just doing fear porn. There was like a lot of things I agreed with what that guy was saying, but I think there's a lot, when I get people like this on my channel, and again, in no disrespectful way whatsoever. This guy is, hardcore prepper, it seems. If I find his channel again, I'll definitely recommend it. If he's showing you how to homestead and stuff like that, real prepping stuff. I'm not really what you would call a hardcore prepper channel, although I dabble in it, right? But he made a lot of good points about, fear porn and stuff like that. World War III is imminent and stuff like that. I try not to use imminent because imminent is such a... Yeah, it is clickbait. There's no doubt. And a lot of my titles are clickbait. Though, it is what it is, right? But there was a couple of things, and I hear this from some of my subscribers too. People, World War III is going to happen. Cooler heads are going to prevail. So don't worry about it. They'll never let it get that bad. And it's the same problem that I think a lot of preppers have. Now, preppers tend to be more cautious-minded than anybody on the planet, really. I mean, they're always thinking about what if, right? But the problem is that, we never thought that could happen here. Again, probably the most quoted thing by civilians in history. We never thought that could happen here. This is a nice place. How many times have you heard that? And the reason why it catches people off guard is, I think the number one reason is that because they're thinking rationally insane, and that's fine if you think, and most people would agree with you, no one's going to use nukes because, it'd be lunacy to use it. Hence lies the problem. The people we're talking about are insane. They're literally insane. They might sound semi-rational or whatever, but when you really understand what they're advocating for, they are insane. When Hillary Clinton advocates for a no-fly zone in Syria, and you even had General Dunsford, I can't remember his first name there, but sitting there, and you can even hear it in his voice, kind of like, to have a no-fly zone, that means we have to go to war with Syria and Russia. Are you mad? Are you nuts? That type of thing. That's kind of what, and that's good. That's good to hear that from a general. What you don't want to hear from a general is, for those who are going to threaten us, we're going to beat you harder than any, you don't want a war hawk, and I get it comes with the territory. that, these guys are going to like the idea of going to war. There's blood and guts Patton, and then there's blood and guts Patton wannabes, right? So you have to understand that too. There are guys that really do want to. They're always fighting the last war, as they say. So they're always looking for that opportunity to make a big name for themselves. These guys are history buffs. There's no doubt about that. I don't think you could be a general without being a history buff. That type of thing. So some of them, again, they want that glory to be the King Leonidas of their time, so to speak, right? And I was the general who did this and did that, and then whatever. So when you do get a general that really truly understands that, no, war isn't about ego. It's about death and destruction. The reasons are really, minute why they're for death and destruction. It doesn't matter. It's the end result is death and destruction. And the thing about that is, because this is being talked about in the nuclear age, one thing that you have to understand, the reason why I do what I usually don't use things like imminent. I will put an alert once in a while, like, for example, it has to be something big, like the Russians or the Syrian army and Russian intelligence getting hit by the U.S. airstrike. That's big news. That's big news, because that shows direct conflict with Russia. That is, like, the war already went hot with NATO, with Russia, with the Russians. Again, these are little minor incidents at first, but with the Russian Su-24 getting shot down, that is definitely an alert. That's something you want to know about. Barely talk. I don't even think it's ever been mentioned on the mainstream media up here, about a Russian Su-24 getting shot down. That is big news. That is huge news. As a Syrian Su-24 getting shot down, which I think the Syrians only might have a handful of them. I think they mostly have MiG-23s and MiG-21s, and a handful of new MiG-29s. But if it was Syrian, no, it's not as big of a deal. But Russia, it's a NATO country shooting down a Russian Federation airplane. It's huge news. It's huge news. Now, again, the cooler heads prevailing wasn't on the Turkish side. It's on the Russian side. That said, the Russians are getting force meets force, push coming to shove. And with what I got in this report, I think, these are those little incremental steps that I've been telling people to watch, yes, for years. And I'm glad we've had years. But at some point, it's just going to happen. I don't know when. And that's probably one of the most, well, not the most common question I get about World War III, but a very high, especially with subscribers that are new. When do you think it's going to happen? It's going to happen by next Wednesday at 8 o'clock, because I got to get this done before that. That type of thing. I don't know when. I don't know the date and the time. And I don't pretend to know. All I want to achieve with this channel is to give you geopolitical updates of what's going on in the world. And that you make up your own mind. And if you think it's never going to happen, that's up to you. But for those that think it's never going to happen, again, history teaches us, no, it will happen. It's just not it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And that's not fear porn, that's just reality. We do have lunatics. The lunatics that got us into World War I is the same cut of cloth of the lunatics that got us into World War II, the same cut of cloth that is getting us directly into World War III. And how we haven't been launched into it yet is because, yes, you're correct, cooler heads did prevail. But the problem is it's not on this side of the pond. It's not on this side of not this empire. That empire, cooler heads prevail. The Chinese have been, I don't know how they've been able to stay under the radar so long. And you got to admire that's brilliant tactician to stay out of it as much as possible, even with the U.S. Navy patrolling right off your coast. That's pretty impressive. The Russians, direct aggression against Russia. I'm not saying the Russian government is a saint or Putin is a saint. No, I mean, let the Russian people deal with the Russian government. That's their problem. You know what I mean? Right now, the Russian people tend to be very pro-Putin. So why overthrow? Okay, fine. Now, that said, if Putin goes, I mean, he's not a young man either. If Putin goes, who might replace Putin could be 10 times more terrifying. I mean, you get one of these old Cold War horses. Some of them were very neoconish, even on that side, and the neocons do originate from Russia. Keep that in mind. They do originate from there. So they're there. So Putin is Russian Federation. He's not Soviet Union. He is Russian Federation. The Russians are building an empire, but they're building a very secluded empire. Members only kind of thing. You want to do a deal with us, you do deal with us. That type of thing. The Chinese are doing the same. So that's that side of the empire. Right now you have to look at Russia and China as the same empire. And if you understand it as empires fighting, then you understand that war is inevitable. That type of thing. And right now, on this side of the